Hello everyone, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith, and today we're doing this solo setup video for Sword and Sorcery. I'm extremely excited to start this playthrough. This is a game that I've been eyeing. I've had it in my hands for quite some time, and I've been dying to get this thing to the table, and we are ready to do so right now. Now, the first thing I want to do is thank all you guys for your incredible feedback. I put a poll up on Board Game Geek. We got a nice amount of votes and responses, which then formed our party. So if you guys were part of that vote, you already know who's going to be used in this playthrough. In future playthroughs, I will be using my Rolling Solo Board Game Geek guild in order to get some input from you guys prior to playthroughs as to who I should use and how many characters and all that kind of stuff, because I want you guys to be just as involved in the playthroughs as I am. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and talk about solely just the solo setup and no rule talk. I'll do my best to avoid that. We'll see how it goes. So right here we have the setup. I'm not going to go over this just yet. We're going to talk first off about the heroes because that's really the first thing that happens. Again, all story and all the cool narrative and everything to do with, putting a thematic feel to it. I'm going to deal with all of that when we move to the solo playthrough. This solo setup though is just specific to how to get this thing to the table in the shortest amount of time and get playing. So this is the prologue, just so you know, the setup for the prologue. So we're going to go ahead now, and we obviously have already chosen our 3 heroes, and that's based on that poll that I was talking about. Those 3 heroes are these individuals right here. This individual right here is Shelled. He is a berserker, and so he's going to be kind of our tank, our anger management needed. He badly needs some anger management. He's an angry, aggressive guy. He's going to be in his chaos state, so there is a law, which on the other side is more of a positive vibe, and then of course you got chaos, which is more of the aggressive and maybe is out for his own will. So basically it's just a different vibe, but very, very cool. So he's going to be with us, and he's going to be basically our tank, the guy to run in there. The really cool thing is you guys pick 2 other characters that are very, very different, and you can see based on the rune right here in the top right, it says S, which resembles strength. He is our strength character, and it's fairly obvious to see why. Now we're going to go ahead and pick our next character, and we already know who that is if we've been following the poll, and that is going to be Samira, and she is a shaman or shaman, and so she is going to be focusing mainly on the faith-based runes, which means when we go to pick items, these runes are going to come into play in terms of what she can carry versus other characters. It's very important to remember that. So these cards are going to land right here in your hero card positions, so like so. And we've got 2 kind of and the cool thing about her is she's able to conjure up things, and again, being a faith-based character, she's able to manipulate the area as well as perform magic. It's very, very cool. Then we also picked Almanor, who's our necromancer. So we've got another magic user, which is really cool because typically when I play these types of games, I have more combat than I have magic or spellcasters or anything like that. And we've got more of the balance between magic user with the M up here in the rune, a faith-based user, and then a strength-based user. It's going to be really interesting because we're going to have one person over here in Shelled who's going to have a full-time job in keeping these 2 guys alive as they take shots from either distance, well, we hope from distance, but again, being magic users, it'll be very, very interesting. So I'm excited for that. So once you've got your 3 characters, you're putting your hero card on the hero sheet. The only other thing you really need to know, because we're not going to talk about rules, so I'm not going to go over any of this, is the fact that this symbol right here in the dark with these little, you can see 2 little etched in kind of sword knife type things. They are in dark black, which kind of represents the fact that it's a chaos card. There are cards in the deck that resemble kind of a silverish look. That means it's law based. So just make sure when you're picking your sides that you ensure that you go ahead and pick your one or the other. You can't have law mixed with chaos, but you can have neutral mixed with chaos or neutral mixed with law. So again, law and chaos have to stay totally separate out of the party unless you're playing a variant rule, which the rulebook does allow to do so, but I'm not going to do that in this playthrough. The other thing you want to grab is your hero bookmark. That's these little gem things in the bottom. They're just going to denote when your turn is over, so every single time you go through a turn, you'll take that and flip it over. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to grab your soul gems that line up with your characters. You want to make 100% sure you're using the right side. So again, match your look of your character with the same look of what it looks like on the player mat for his chaos side. So again, red eyes is the one thing that noted for me in the Shelled character. So there we go. We'll put that right there. We're going to go ahead and take a look at Samira's, and again, make sure it matches. Yes, the other side is a little darker, so that's not it. So there we go. and she's in play. And then we're going to go over here to this guy who's got this green versus the red. And yes, the green is actually the chaos side. So sometimes, even if you look at it, you might think that the chaos side is on one side than the other, but just double check the cards because that's the way you know. Because sometimes it's actually not very obvious as to which is chaos and which is law. Sometimes it's very hard to tell just from the picture alone. All right, so now we've got our board set up. I'm just giving them a little bit of a sprawled position because cards are going to start forming into all these different piles, and I don't want them to roll over top of each other. The next thing we're going to talk about is we'll move to, let's go to powers, I guess. This is going to be essentially your, it's going to be the hero's powers, that their power cards that they're going to be using. So what happened here is I drafted all this stuff off camera because I didn't want to do this during, but essentially it comes from this deck right here. So what I did is there's a huge deck of powers for every character. You can see Samira has a whole bunch of them, right? But the only thing that matters when you're going ahead and doing this is you're looking at your soul gem. So your soul gem will denote how many powers your hero can actually have when he or she starts the game. So you're going to go ahead and take a look. For instance, let's take a look at Sheld. He's got himself 1 power, and the power is denoted by that symbol right there on the right, and it says a 1 beside it, so he's only going to get 1 power of his choice, as long as, and of course you want to make sure that you're using only soul rank 1, because otherwise the power that you pick is useless to you until you rank up and level up. These soul gems are really cool because as you rank up, you're going to be ticking this thing up, and your powers are going to increase. So you can see there that there's an asterisk now showing up for him, which was not there in the prior level. What that asterisk means is that you're no longer going for just a power, you're going for a talent now. And a talent is more of a general pool ability that you get on your character. And then of course, as you level up, then that denotes with the 2 asterisks means you go grab a second power card and stuff like that. So in the end, you should have 2 power cards denoted by the 2, and you should have 1 talent card denoted by the 1 asterisk. It's a little bit weird the way that works. Very easy to confuse it when you first start the game, and I myself looked at it and thought it was a little strange, but it makes perfect sense once you get the hang of it. So with that in mind, I'll talk really quick about the soul gem before we talk about the power cards. You've obviously got your soul rank at the very top, which is 1. All of our characters are going to start with that. Our health is denoted by the heart, very simplistic. 7 for this character. I've got a combat action of 1, meaning I can make 1 combat action during my turn. And this one right here is just a single action. So that's the yellow kind of multiple triangle symbol is just a single action. This just denotes, like we just talked about, how many powers you can actually have in your hand. And that's it. It's really not that difficult. So now we're going to go ahead and start filling out our player boards with our hero picked cards. Now, I'm going to do a quick flip and show you, like here's Samira's, there's a ton. So for one character, you're going to have a whole bunch. But again, remember, whether you're neutral, chaos, or law, some of these cards are going to no longer apply. Because I chose chaos, then when I'm looking through all of her power, when I was looking through all of her powers to pick one for her, I was focusing right here on this symbol. These 2 little black wing type arrow things basically are black. If they're black, that means they can be put on a chaos character. But once they get into this kind of light symbol where it's like a silver wing, that means I have to be law in order to use those. So I can't use those particular ones. But I can use neutral, and I can use chaos. So that's how you go about it. And then of course you also want to focus on the fact that right here onto the left, it'll tell you what soul rank you have to be to actually use the power. So you don't want to be silly and pick a power that you can't use until way, way, way up there. And then all of a sudden you're a little screwed. It's not wise. You're supposed to be picking powers that you can actually use per your soul rank. So again, put these back on top. Once you know what you want, you don't need these anymore. So I've actually got the ones I want off to the side. So I'll be pointing them out one by one. We'll start with our Shelled Berserker. So he's going to go ahead and pick Frenzy, and he's got the Chaos symbol right there to denote that. This is a passive ability denoted by that little purple symbol right there, and it says if your enemies control or dominate your area, your attacks inflict a couple extra damage. Very cool. We'll talk about what that means once we get to it. So bam, that is in his... it's going to start going from left to right as he accrues different powers, and if he ever dies and loses a soul rank, then the rightmost power or ability gets tossed. It's kind of crazy. Then we're going to move over to Samira, who's going to pick the Voodoo Doll. So the Voodoo Doll is again, this is really cool because it's free. It's a totally free action. So again, I've chosen first actions that don't impact my total actions, if that makes any sense. So these free actions I can do every single round. It never ever impacts how many of the gold kind of triangle, which gives me 1 action. So I'm going to be able to do this as well as an action. So this says place a voodoo doll token on a target enemy until time phase. This enemy suffers the same HP you suffer, then remove the token. So you're almost putting the voodoo doll on. Very, very cool. It's a token, so you got to make sure to take the token. If there's ever a symbol that sits right in the middle, it means there is a token that applies to it, and you want to grab that so that you can actually use it during the gameplay. So she's going to have a voodoo doll she can chuck on a certain location on a target enemy, and if that target enemy or if the enemy suffers the same HP, notice to say this enemy suffers the same HP you suffer, exactly. So, okay, anyway, we're gonna skip the rules. I gotta really avoid that. So we're going over here to the Almanar, our Necromancer. He's gonna go ahead and pick 2 cards. Now the reason he's picking 2, you might be saying, why is he picking 2? Well, if you take a look, in the top right up here, it says not only just 1 power card, so just to clarify for her, it was 1, there's no asterisks. He's the only one that has a 1 and also has an asterisk. And what that means is he needs to pick a talent card as well as a power card. So I've gone ahead and done so. And I've picked this talent here and this power right here. So this power card says Arcane. It's a drain life. It's going to give him the ability, so he has to use a combat action, which would be the 1 combat action he gets in order to get this card out and play. If he does, he can roll some dice, get some extra bonuses and all that stuff. But the cool thing is, at the end of the day, he can heal, and that's huge. We need some healing. This one here allows me to automatically acquire as a passive ability without even cooling it down. Cooling it down is when you flip a card and you can see they're denoted by these different symbols. So if you had a particular ability like this, for instance, that has 2 right here, if I use this ability, then this has to be put on cooldown 2, and then every single, that's cooldown 4, so it's always facing up, so 2, and then every single round it would kind of cool down. And then it would cool down to 1 the next round, and the next round it would flip back up. It's really cool. It's kind of got that World of Warcraft type feel to it, where you're kind of using something and it's a time-based thing in terms of when it comes back. So you come over here to toughness and talent. This one is passive, so it's going to happen all the time. It means I automatically gain +1 of my health, meaning my health being 4 is now 5. Very good for him. He's my weakest character at 5 health. Then this character is at 5, or I guess he would have been my weakest character. So we got a 5 health character here, a 5 health character here, and then a 7 health character here. So we're all set up now. The only other thing I don't want to forget is these tombs. So these tombs come with him because it says on his card, when an enemy dies, you can place a tomb token in its area, and a tomb token is removed if used or when you desire. So what happens here is that these are going to come more into play, and I'm not really going to be using them much in the first playthrough, but he has abilities that I could have picked, and I didn't, but I could have, that allows me to put a tomb in a location where one enemy dies in order to then enact some nastiness on some other enemies that are there. So we won't see that too much in the first playthrough, but as he grows stronger, those are going to come into play even more. And technically, if I'd have chosen, I could have brought those into play, but I really wanted Drain Life for its healing ability. Okay, enough about that. Let's talk more about the player board and what we've got here, because you're wondering, like, what are all these blank spaces? So when you start the prologue scenario, you don't start with any weapons or armor. I know that's really confusing, so don't freak out. Don't go to Board Game Geek. Don't wonder why. It's normal. You actually start the prologue scenario out and you do not start with any weapons. You will find them. That's all I'm going to say. It's not a spoiler. You will find them eventually. So what happens here is you've got these different areas of your game board. So this one here is for your armor. This is going to be where you essentially drop your armor into play. You've got one here for your artifacts are going to sit here. Your actions, or sorry, your powers and talents are going to kind of trail off to the side here. From this side over, you're going to have your backpack or inventory. So this is where you're essentially going to be carrying items that are not equipped. So anything that's sitting in here, in here, in here, or in here is considered equipped. Everything that's sitting over here is not equipped, and it's just in your backpack. It can be things like consumables, like a spell or a potion, stuff like that. You'll see that later. Up here, you've got more of what you're talking about in terms of primary weapon and secondary weapon. So if you have a primary weapon that is a sword, and it shows a sword on the card, it goes here. And then if it's a broadsword or a two-handed weapon or something like that, it goes here as well. If you get a two-handed weapon, you can only have this space filled in. You cannot use the secondary weapon. It makes sense. If you're holding a spear or something, or a long sword, broadsword that's two-handed and shows that icon, you can't use your secondary weapon because you're using both hands to carry it. But if you're using just a single-handed sword, just something that's like really small, like a cutlass or something along those lines, you can carry that sword, and you can also carry maybe a backup sword, like a dagger or something like that, that can go in here. And it will be denoted by the double sword cross that you can put it into this area. So that's kind of the restrictions about what you can carry and what you can't carry. So that's pretty much that. Now what we're going to do really quickly is talk about the setup of the actual game, because that's your hero stuff. There's also some other things to go over as well, because there's quite a bit in this game, but I'm going to skip over things that just don't matter in my opinion. So we're going to talk about the setup of the actual prologue now, because now at this point we already have our heroes all squared away, and technically we could start right now. So the first thing you're going to do when you set up this scenario is we're going to take a look real quick at the rulebook. I'm going to lay it right over top of our heroes, and we're just going to go through this one by one. I will not read the introduction in this video, but I will be reading this and setting up the story and the stage. Believe me, it'll be awesome for the actual playthrough. So this is a standalone quest because it is the very first prologue, Act 1, Quest 1. It's an introduction quest, so there's no soul points, no crowns, no treasures, and no soul weapons to start. Everything's just blank. We have to create an enemy deck, so that's going to include two gremlins and two green gremlins, sorry, and two blue gremlins. I am saying that terrible. 2 green gremlins and 2 blue gremlins. So you have these 2 cards. You're going to find these cards buried inside of the enemy deck. So go inside the enemy deck, which is, for me, it's been sitting right here, and you're going to pull out the enemies that the actual game itself requires 2 and 2, and you're going to shuffle them together. So I'm not going to do that on camera for shuffling purposes, but I will do that when we start the playthrough. Shuffle that up, put it over there. Event deck. The best way to describe this without getting really confusing, because when you look at this, it's actually kind of strange. Build the deck from the right to the left. Easiest way to remember, because at the end of the day, this left card is going to be the one that's on top. So basically, you look at these and go, okay, I'm going to find story card 8 and 11, shuffle them together, put them on the bottom. Take 18, immediately put it on top. Shuffle 6 and 9 together, put them on top. Take 14, put it on top. And then that's your deck. So as of right here, when I built that deck, which I'm not showing on camera, I did all those things I just said. So the top one should be 14 because 5 is in play. And 5 is a night card, which is in play. And it says read and apply the night events. And I'm not going to talk about the rules about that, but this is in play from the start of the prologue. So this card, if I created this deck correctly, should be 14. That should be the next one that's going to come up. So without blowing anything, there's 14. So this is going to essentially just sit like this. And that's what's going to be coming for the next pull when we have to go through the end of our round. So when we get to the event phase, we're going to be pulling that. Okay, so that's the event deck. Very simplistic. There's only a couple little things on this one. Of course, I'm sure they'll grow as we go further into the campaign. These special location and special quest rules, they will expand for sure. This is just a prologue, so it's fairly simplistic. This one says special locations. Place a story event number 1 and story event number 2 as indicated on the map. That is just these guys right here. So story event number 1 is here. Story event number 2 is here. Easy, no issues. The reason you can tell that is it says right there, SE1 and SE2. Done. Then it says shuffle waypoint 3 and 4 and place them face down in location A and B. So right here is where waypoint 3 is going to end up, and wave 4 is over here. This is denoted by the fact that even in this right here, so A is right here with the scroll, and B is over here, and it said to shuffle waypoint 3 and 4 and drop them in A and B spaces. So there's 3, and there's 4. Done. All right, then we go over to the special quest rules. It says Emporium. Heroes cannot visit the Emporium before the quest. Now, normally there's this place, a really cool place called the Emporium that you can go to and stuff like that, and things can happen. But you're not able to do that on this prologue quest. So you can't go somewhere and purchase anything. It says here, day event. So once we actually find the day event, which is in this deck somewhere, this wonderful deck right here, no additional effects are required. Nothing else will happen. Now in the night card, which the night card is in play from the start, it says during the night, each attack performed by heroes causes 1 less hit. Hugely important. You've got to remember this rule. It's something you might even, if you're going to forget it a lot, write it down, put it on a piece of paper, drop it right here if you're going to forget. But every single time you make a fight attack or an attack against an enemy, you're always going to do 1 less hit. The quest failure is right here. Quest fail. The quest fails if the last event card is discarded. In other words, boom, you've run out of the entire event deck. Or all heroes are ghosts. So in other words, once your heroes have gone and vanished and become kind of souls in themselves, and they are ghosts, which they'll look like this, once they're all kind of light blue and they're dead, then all of a sudden you have immediately lost the game. Those are your 2 fail conditions. Event deck draining out, or you 3 becoming ghosts. This is the quest setup for the prologue. It's going to give you your map tiles. So again, very straightforward. If you've ever played a dungeon crawler before, you've got the exact same layout. Everything's noted here. You're not going to miss anything. It even shows the numbers of the tiles in the bottom right. Build out your map as I've already done. You can do it in any orientation that suits your purpose. Now you can see here it's kind of showing me that I should have done it starting here coming towards me. Doesn't matter. You can do it sideways, left to right, whatever. As long as it's in that pattern, you're okay. So set that up as it shows here. Now we're going to go through the tokens. In the tokens pool, you're going to go ahead and find all the tokens denoted here. We've got the one open spawn gate, the one closed spawn gate, the one search area, the one chest, two normal doors, a locked door, an open shrine, and one closed shrine. All of those tokens are very easily matched on this. So you're gonna have your, like, I'm not gonna go through every single one of them. Very straightforward. You got there's your searchable area there. There's a closed shrine because it's got an X on it. You're gonna go through here. There's a spawn point as it was denoted up here. This is one open spawn point. You got yourself an open shrine right here. That was right there. You got doors, of course. Doors are normal doors. Normal doors mean that I can rip through them and I don't have to try to use a full action to break into them. You can use a free action to get through them, but when they're locked, you got to use an action. So anyway, that's a normal door, another normal door, and a locked door. And there's where the chest is, of course, hiding behind the locked door. Our goal is essentially to get from here, rip through this entire thing all the way to this location here. And I imagine, you know, ending up, there'll be a bunch of story events that happen as we go through. Then you're going to go ahead and take, it looks like you're going to get some shadow tokens ready, basically. So get your shadow tokens ready. It says 5 shadow, 3 shadow. It says 4 waypoints. The waypoints are already specified on this already. So if there's waypoints that are blatantly obvious, like this one, 2, and this one up here, 1, just put them out. Now you're wondering, oh, why did it say 3 and 4? Remember, go back to your special locations, waypoint 3 and 4. This is where you shuffle them and paste them down, location A and B. And location A and B was here and here. So that's why we put 3 and 4 right there and there. Easy. The story events, that's what we already talked about. We put them exactly where the rules already told us to put them. Shadow Reserve. Okay, so this is going to tell you based on how many heroes you're playing, how many shadow tokens are in play. So for 3 heroes like we're playing, we have 1 citizen, 4 enemies, and 2 enemies. You need to make 100% sure that you do this correctly. So what I'm going to do is you're going to note that, like, I'm not going to actually show you the bottoms of these tokens because they're very simplistic. When you flip them over, there's either 2 gremlin heads or 1 gremlin head or a citizen face. That's how you know. You take, so for me, I'm taking 1 of the citizen faces, 4 of the gremlin faces, and then 1 of the doubles. You shuffle them up, and then you place the shadow tokens out as per your character amount. So when I'm playing with 3, I'm only putting the one shadow token here. I'm ignoring the 4+. Then I'm putting 1 here, ignoring the 4+ because I don't have 4+ characters in play. Then I'm putting 1 here, 1 here. So that's 4 already, and then 1 here. Now you'll notice that's 5. Why did it ask me to take 6? Because one of them gets tossed. You don't know which one gets tossed. That's what keeps things exciting. And then, of course, you got the Book of Secrets, which is the book I already talked about right here, which essentially is a secret, and I will not open it until we start playing. But basically, these story events will correlate to different sections in the storybook. That's the setup. That's the whole shebang. You've got this thing to the table. Obviously, your dice are there. Your characters start in this area right here. And when we begin our solo playthrough, you're going to see this thing in action. We'll explain rules as we go because that will make the most sense. And I may do an overview video before it just to give a general sense of the rules before we start playing. So this, I think I'll do that. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this solo setup. Hopefully this gets it to the table for you quicker. And I can't wait to see you in the next one. So keep on rolling solo.